When learning a new skill, you start slow, and in drifting, this means progressing from figure eights to parking lot courses, and finally, to drifting real tracks at real speeds. The beginner stage of drifting is about building the confidence to use enough throttle to keep the car sideways, but as you develop car control, you begin to enter corners faster and carry more speed through them. It's only a matter of time until you reach a point where you're going too fast for the next turn and need to slow down mid-drift to keep from flying off the track. After spending so much time focused on adding speed, this usually catches beginners off guard. So, to keep you from accidentally taking an off-road adventure in your lowered drift car, I'll show you 5 techniques, including left foot braking, to bleed off speed and control your line through corners. Your car has 4 tools you can use to slow down: angle and engine braking, the handbrake, and finally the foot brake. Wait, that's only 3. Oh yeah, there's also... Yeah, I don't recommend that one. Want to know a universal rule of drift physics? The more angle your car has, the more it slows down when you're off throttle. If you've ever heard someone talk about using angle to slow the car, it means sliding out more sideways than needed for a turn on purpose, to let the car lose speed off throttle and set you up to enter a slower turn. Engine braking goes hand in hand with this. When you're in gear but off throttle, the engine produces drag, trying to pull the car back to idle speed. The higher your RPM, the more engine braking slows you down. Even though this deceleration is small, if you've ever seen the Drift King Keiichi Tsuchiya's Drift Bible, drag from engine braking is a big part of the weight transfer that make up his excel off and lift off drift techniques. For similar corners, using angle and engine braking for a few moments may be all you need to stop the car from floating too far outside and dipping a tire off track. Whether it's the stock cable or a hydraulic motorsports unit, the handbrake activates just the rear brakes and is strong enough to lock the tires, though if you're using a stock unit, it may need tightening on older cars. Beginners often ask, do you need to invest in a hydraulic handbrake to drift? Well, my personal drift car is classic Japan style, relying on just the original cable handbrake for the past 17 seasons of drifting, so that should tell you something. Hydros, specifically dual caliper setups with a dedicated line that's separate from your foot brake lines, are better, but with the right traction balance and good weight transfer technique, you can absolutely learn on a cable handbrake, even for tandem drifting. Handbrake is useful for initiating drifts and modulating your line mid-corner. It slows the car more than coasting at angle, and when the rear tires lock, you can control your line with steering. If you aren't at enough angle or need to pitch the car in toward the apex more, you can reduce countersteer to quickly rotate toward the inside of the turn, and then get back on throttle to continue on a tighter line. Hand braking with countersteer lets you float the car away from the inside of the apex, kind of like strafing. Use this technique to extend your drift farther into a corner when you need to keep from driving up the inside curb, or to link an awkwardly long straight, one that's too short for a manji but hard to link without one. As you float the car with e-brake, you lose speed, so remember, you can only use it for a short distance before you've slowed down so much that your only options are to grip up and reinitiate, or do a burnout to try to say that you're still in drift. Handbrake gives you the room to make small corrections when your line or speed is a little off, but you should always strive for perfect timing in corner entries so you barely need to use it during solo runs, if at all. All braking techniques slow the car, but foot brake is the strongest. Have you ever experienced maximum effort braking in a straight line? The G-forces are surprisingly powerful, throwing you forward in your seat. Most people have no idea how quickly their car can stop. But, of course, most people aren't drifting. Anyone who's studied motorsports driving has heard that a sliding car has way less traction than a car in grip. So, does that mean that pressing the foot brake won't do much when you're drifting? Actually, no. In drift, only the rear tires are sliding. The front tires are rolling freely, and because the foot brake is biased to the front, you actually retain a decent amount of braking capability, even while drifting. There are 2 foot brake techniques we'll discuss: normal braking and left foot braking. And keep in mind, I'm not talking about initiations here. We're talking about using the brakes when you're already sideways. Normal foot brake is taking your right foot off the throttle and pressing the brake pedal. It slows the car quickly and strengthens the G-forces trying to pull the car sideways into a spin. Be prepared for the car to gain angle the harder you foot brake. You should be ready to feed in more countersteer to balance the car in drift, and be careful about heavy braking when you're already at max steering lock. This reduced speed and increased angle pulls the car in toward the inside of the corner, and you'll be driving a tighter line when you get back on throttle. A great time to use foot brake is when going through a decreasing radius turn or transitioning from a medium corner into a hairpin. Another key time is on entry to the first turn. If there's much run-up at all, my favorite technique is a feint or flick entry, where I can dive in far too fast and then foot brake down to the right entry speed as the car transitions back into the turn. But this approach carries some risk. If you use too much weight transfer in transition, the car might spin or angle stall. And if you don't use enough, the car may stick at low angle and grip up while you foot brake. If it does, the front tires will almost certainly understeer, which at best will look lame, and at worst, you might faceplant into the wall or get hit by the chase car in tandem. You can guard against this mistake by combining foot brake and handbrake together. Use the foot brake to control your actual entry speed and the handbrake to hold your angle, or correct it if you didn't use enough weight shift during the flick. This will give your entries more confidence and control, letting you dive into tight corners even faster. Now let's move on to one of the most requested and least understood techniques in drifting. Left foot braking is a technique where the driver uses their left foot to modulate the brake pedal, leaving their right foot free for throttle inputs. You'll see other variations of this technique used in grip racing and rally, but for drifting, you'll frequently be on throttle with your right foot while using the brakes with your left. What's the point of braking and accelerating at the same time? Well, we already know that near constant throttle is required to maintain a drift. And we know that when you push the brake pedal, it slows down all four wheels. However, when you apply left foot brake over top of throttle, engine power cancels out the braking at the rear tires. In effect, left foot braking allows you to slow down just the front tires, while the rear tires continue to spin or even accelerate. There are two key ways to use left foot braking, each with a different impact on handling. Pressing the left foot brake gently while in drift applies only a small amount of braking to the front tires. It doesn't transfer enough weight to overcome the G-forces pulling the car sideways, so this technique can slow the car down without causing major changes in your line through the corner. It might even be better to say that you aren't slowing the car down, you're just letting it accelerate less. As long as you only apply light pressure to the brake pedal, you shouldn't have to alter your countersteer much. So, why would you use this technique? The main reason is to make minor adjustments to your proximity in drift runs. For solo or lead laps, this technique is one way to run walls. The driver accelerates out to the wall using throttle steer, then holds their position with light left foot braking, which prevents the car from floating farther out and starting to tag their bumper against the wall. In tandem chase runs, light left foot braking lets you control proximity to the lead car, just like you would for running a wall. Power out to the lead car, and then use left foot brake to keep from driving into them. This technique is also used to keep from hitting the lead car during transitions, but we'll talk about this in detail a bit later in the video. The more heavily you left foot brake, the more weight transfers forward. Once you apply enough braking force, the rear tires lose traction, and the car begins to gain angle, pivoting around its front tires. This point, and anywhere beyond, is what I call moderate left foot brake. The amount where you not only slow the car, but also rotate it. Similar to normal foot brake, you can swing the car to more angle and slow down to get onto a tighter line. Of course, you don't have to let the weight transfer tighten your line. By countersteering as the car gains angle, you can temporarily stay on the same line at more angle and going slower than you normally could. Here are a few ways you can use this technique. You can correct for a shallow transition by giving a firm press of the foot brake to swing the car out to more angle. This works similar to using the handbrake, but you have more control over how much it slows the car down, and there's less risk of bogging the engine because you're still on throttle. You can also tuck the car in tighter mid-corner if you're running a little too wide and need to pinch the car in, or if the corner tightens at the exit. And last but not least, here's a bonus tip. You can nail your tandem transitions by using these two left foot braking techniques. In tandem, you'll naturally flow between light and moderate left foot braking as you adjust to the lead car and match their speed and angle. If you're happy with your proximity, you'll be on light left foot brake. And if they make an adjustment, you can dip into heavier braking to maintain your distance, or back away after giving them a tire mark. Though outside of the simulator, you should always make sure the lead driver is cool with that before pushing them around your favorite sweeper. One of the coolest scenarios for left foot braking is how you can use it to ease into the pocket after a transition. Let me paint you a picture. You're in the chase position and you've matched the lead car's speed and angle. You're approaching the end of this turn, and soon the lead driver will transition into the other direction. Making your best guess as to when this will be, you nail the timing and watch as your car mirrors their transition in real time. You then get on throttle and drive back into the pocket at a shallower angle than the lead car. This shallow angle means you accelerate faster, and before long you'll be about to drive into their door. This is the part where you dip into moderate left foot braking over throttle, slowing your car to match their speed so you don't collide, and simultaneously swinging your car around to match their angle too. When your angle is set, ease off to light left foot brake to maintain your desired proximity until the next turn. Getting this right feels amazing, and I hope you all get to the point where you can experience this, either in sim or your real cars. Good braking technique gives drivers the confidence and control to drift at high speed and connect a range of corners, making it essential for building the ability to link any turn on any track. But the ultimate skill for this is finding an affordable way to get reliable seat time, and for that, I highly recommend practicing using a driving simulator like Assetto Corsa on PC. So click this video to learn how to get started with sim drifting. You're also invited to join my newsletter called Tandem Talk, where I share more tips on drift technique, behind-the-scenes content, and unreleased footage. It's linked in the description and pinned comment, so sign up and I'll see you in the next video.